So that means we get to do cool things in aviation and in space all day, every day. And we have, in any given day, we have about 100 missions going on in space at any given point. I can't keep track of them all. And that doesn't include the aeronautics portfolio in places like Edwards Air Force Base, down at Langley, where we're working on things like trying to make supersonic airplanes that are quiet. Those don't remember, years ago, until not too long ago actually, the British and the French had Concorde, a supersonic airliner which flew across the ocean. Now they couldn't go much further than just across the Atlantic Ocean because the boom was just loud and people got tired of having their car alarms go off or just being annoyed by this noise. And so they're trying to do things like make it quieter so we can go back to having supersonic aviation around the globe and it doesn't upset people. We're doing other things in aviation that just astound me, and you will, some point 50 years from now, one of you will be up here talking to somebody born 40 years ago about the cool things that we're doing with aviation then too, and NASA will still be doing those things out there. In space, we're going to the moon. By the end of this decade, we will have put our first crews back on the surface of the moon, and not just to plant a flag and declare victory, but to stay. We're having serious conversations about how do we put GPS up around the moon so we can navigate? Where do we put the cell phone towers so we can talk? Because we're not going to give up our phones when we go to the moon, you know that. How do we put things like power? How do you plug in and get electricity? How do we work and stay on the moon? Because there's folks out there who want to go out there and live and work on the moon, and we're doing that piece out there. Now, the government has made it plain that once NASA gets to the moon and figures that out, we don't get to stay. We get to be the pioneers, but as soon as everybody else shows up behind us, we lose our lease. They're being told unambiguously, you need to be thinking about Mars. Mars is the next giant leap, and NASA is there to take us on great giant leaps. To get a sense of that, right now, for most of your lives, we've had somebody in low Earth orbit, which has been about 250 miles above the Earth on every single day since about, I think, November of 2000. So anybody younger than that, there's always been people up about 250 miles above the Earth from multiple nations. The moon is 1,000 times farther than that. 250,000 miles from the Earth, which is why it's so difficult to get out there. It takes a while. We haven't done it in about 50 years. It's expensive, it's remote, it's dangerous. We're trying to bring that in closer. We've got the technology, but can we make it practical? Mars is another giant leap even beyond that. Mars is more than 1,000 times farther from us than the moon is. And it's worse, we can be 350 miles to get out there on one way because you have the sun between us and Mars for some of the time, and to get out there on our best trajectories take us around that path. That's 8.5 months in space to get someplace. So you better pack a big lunch with you. Once you're there, sometimes you're on the opposite side of the sun where you can't communicate. You're in a planet that has about 40% of the gravity of the Earth. And so when we launch something into space, we have huge facilities like Canaveral and Vandenberg, where there's people out there with miles of lines and thousands of people. How do you get off the planet Mars? I mean, we've seen the movie The Martian, where we land out there, but is it really that simple? All the checkouts and things we do to get something out of a big gravity well the size of a planet is not easy. There'll probably be lots and lots of things out there that may be automated or robotic by the time we get out there, but how do we do that? So you can't just pick up on a whim and head off to Mars. When we were told to go to the moon back in the 1960s, they gave us 10 years. Kennedy said, do this by the end of the decade. And we spent the first 5 years just building a NASA that could build a rocket that could get us out to the moon. And we have the same challenge in front of us now. We need to make a NASA and a nation that can build the facilities we need on Mars so that we can operate from Mars. And that's going to happen probably in about the next 10 to 15 years. And the people who are going to do that are not me. Okay, I am months away from a retirement check and a pension for the rest of my life. I'll be watching you, beating my cane on the floor. Y'all go. So the people who are going to go to Mars are from your generation. And I want to let that sink in. People my age are not going to go to Mars. The people going to Mars are you. So think about where you're going to be in 10 or 15, 25 years from now when we're doing those, when the first people go to Mars. Where will you be? Who wants to be a part of that piece out there? Because when we go do these things, it's not just astronauts. I don't just go jump out there into a spacecraft, go fire it up and go fly off to the moon or fly up to the International Space Station. We are just a visible piece of a very large organization out there. It's not just astronauts to go to the space station or go to the moon. It's engineers, it's scientists, it's doctors, it's lawyers, it's accountants, it's communication specialists out there, payroll clerks. Even the janitors, when you'd ask them about our moon program back in the 1960s, they weren't just pushing a broom in mission control, they were putting people on the moon. And they were absolutely right. We do not get there without all those pieces out there. So when we put people on Mars for the very first time, where will you be? What will you be doing on that day? So let's go, say, 15 years in the future, 2040, where we're putting people on Mars. All of you will be on the other side of your education at that point. You'll be in the jobs that you're doing. So what job is that? What job are you doing? What degree did you get in school that set you up for that job? What degrees did you declare as a major at the beginning of the university that got you into that job or that postgraduate program out there? What were you doing in high school that got you into that university where you declared that degree that put you where you're going to be the day we landed on Mars? And what are you doing right now to set yourself up for that? When I was 6.5 years old, I watched folks land on the moon. And by that time, I knew I just wanted to be a pilot. I wanted to go fly for the airlines. And I watched these guys running around the moon. It's like, and I asked my dad, does being a pilot earn me enough money where I could buy a ticket to go to the moon? And he explained to me, those astronauts aren't paying to go to the moon. That's their job. I said, they're getting paid to go do that? And I had this crisis. I had my first career crisis. I'm not even out of first grade. He goes, what should I be? Should I be a pilot or should I be an astronaut? And he goes, up to this time, most all the astronauts have been pilots. So I could do both those things. And from that day forward, I wasn't going out there suffering through arithmetic in first grade. I was figuring out the math so I could go be an astronaut. I knew what I wanted to be. I was lucky. I don't know why I knew I wanted to go do that, but that's what got me down the way. You don't have to want to be an astronaut. You might want to be a pro football player. You might want to be a surgeon. You might want to be a world-class musician. What gets you out of bed? What makes you excited when somebody's talking about that? You might find aerodynamics boring. You had nothing to do with being an astronaut. I'm okay with that, and everybody needs to be an astronaut. We need doctors. We need musicians. We need people who can do information technology. But think about where you're going to be on that day, someplace 15 years out in the future, and how you got there. And so with that, I'm more interested in what does get you your brains going. So I'm going to open this up to Q&A for the rest of my time here, where we'll talk about space, we can talk about the future, we can talk about science. We're not going to talk about the Phillies or the Eagles, though. I'm sorry, we're not doing that. Everything else, if you get your hand up, so I'm going to get.
Have you ever been to space?
So the question was, have I ever been to space? And I've been to space twice. Now, it's been a while, but we were building the International Space Station when I was there. When I first joined the astronaut corps, that was what they got us for. Was they actually had this big buildup of astronauts because they needed people to go out there and do construction. I'm not sure where they hired me. I can't change a spark plug in a car when I joined the astronaut corps, but by the time I got done, I knew how to do all those things. I got very mechanically inclined by the time I was done. But yeah, I got to do 2 missions, the last of which was we actually finished building the space station. So I got to be one of the first persons to see the station in its full glory after 13 years of construction, which is pretty cool.
If you have a question, what I'd like you to do, stand up and say your name. Please use your outside voice. What voice are we using? Outside voice. Who has the next question for us? I saw your hand going up. You have a question? Sure. Okay. Questions over here?
Just got one. Go ahead.
Say your name.
My name is Andrea Surratt. Question I have for you, what was the physical requirements to be an astronaut?
The physical requirements were just basically a good sight. I think the biggest part of it is, or would you have health issues while you're in orbit? So they check your, do you have any kind of weird things with your heartbeat? Are you prone to kidney stones? Things like that. There was no great physical, you had to go out there and display feats of strength, like go out there and lift 250 pounds or run a marathon, those things like that. Each person there was doing things to keep themselves fit and healthy. I'd say the one job I had that really required some physical fitness and strength was doing spacewalking, because the suits we're in are basically the old dive suits from 100 years ago. They're heavy, they're bulky, they don't like to be moosed around, and if you're in that suit for 4.5 to 6 hours, at some point your muscles just exhaust themselves. I think when I was doing my last mission, where I did 2 spacewalks, I put on 25 pounds of weight on my upper body from working with that suit. And I thought I was fit before that thing, but that thing will give you a workout. But there was no fitness test. Either you could do the tasks they were given to you, or you just couldn't do them. And that was it. So that was only just make sure that you're healthy so they don't have a big medical burden. You're a long way away from an operating room sometimes out there in space, and they want to make sure there's very little chance that you'll have some kind of incident. You bet. Good question. Yes, ma'am.
My name is Malia Macklin. How did it feel to be or to see the world outside of the world?
All right. So there's a term for it now, because we've had enough astronauts in space experience this. It's called the overview effect. And you go up and you look at the world and you see this little tiny blue island of Earth out there in space. So the Earth is 8,000 miles wide, which seems big. But then you have the universe, which is 13.5 billion light years across. And out there in the sunlight, you can't even see the stars. It just looks like this inky black void that goes on forever. And it's got radiation up there. The temperatures are just either way too hot or way too cold. It's just like everything out there in the universe is designed to either kill or prevent life from happening, except on this one little blue island where life's been happening for millions of years. And we're all stuck on that little island. And you look at the Earth, 8,000 mile wide ball of iron and nickel, and you got this 100 mile thick, eggshell thin layer of atmosphere that sits on the Earth, and that's where everything that lives is. Everything that has ever lived, everything that's ever gone on in humanity or life is in this little tiny shell around this island going on around there. And you feel really, really small and insignificant. You see the planets, I mean the continents, and there's no borders between the nations. It's like, there's nothing to say you can look at that's a Canadian-U.S. border. It's just North America. And so you said, aliens landed and said, how come you people over here speak this language? You have this kind of money, you have these laws, and 100 yards over there, they have a different money, they have a different language, they have different laws, and y'all sometimes fight about that. So we got this line right here. Like, what line? And you make out a map and they go, that's a picture of your planet with a line on it, but your planet does not have that line. And you realize we're making all this stuff up. This is all in our heads, and we've all bought into that. And when you see it from Earth, you suddenly, it's like you're out of the matrix. You're seeing it that way. And you come back to the world and you have to go play by everybody's rules, and you get there and people cut you off in traffic and you yell at them for doing that. But there's a sense of being connected that you cannot forget when you get back down here on Earth. Everything, even weather is happening 1,000 miles from you, is affecting what's happening around you right now. Currents in the oceans that are that seem remote are affecting your life. And you see how all that plays against each other as we're one system out there. You also can't see where system people fight about things. So people have this God's eye view of things, and you get that God's eye view, and you figure there's God up there. This is what they're seeing, not what we're seeing. It's a very different experience, and it's hard to get rid of that when you come back. And I don't want to get rid of it. Good question.
Last question in the back.
Yes, sir.
I heard from the Apollo captain that on every flight, all being there and what you're seeing, and he said, take that moment and treasure that for the rest of your life. Do you have a moment like that?
I would like to say there's a lot more than one. I would say there's at least half dozen out there where I had to remind myself that I had a job to do, because what was going around me would not be ignored. I would say the first one of those was when I first got to space, and I'm over the east bank of North Carolina, and I can see up over the Hudson Bay of Canada and the curvature of the Earth, and remember that piece. Other ones were where we flew right through an aurora. I mean, it's not like we're looking up at the sky, we're in this. There's all the green lights are dancing around us. I would say another one was on my first spacewalk. We came out over top of the Amazon rainforest. I could see the snow-capped peaks of the Andes Mountains on one side. I could see the muddy delta of the Amazon and the Atlantic Ocean, and all the dark green jungle and brown rivers, everything around me. And I've got work to do. I've got an 8.5-hour list of things to go do, and I just can't tear my eyes away. And the guy with me starts laughing. He said the same thing. He says, you were never going to see something this cool again. Take it in. Okay, we got plenty of time to make up the work, but just go do those things out there. There's a universe out there with spectacularly beautiful things to see. I'd say the universe is a very beautiful place. It's also a very dangerous place. So you keep a little bit focused on both those things, but don't give up on either. Yes. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. So final question, yes or no question. Have you ever seen an alien out there?
No, I've seen some strange things in space, but I'm using my crewmates, and they all came from Earth.
Hey, make some noise, stand to your feet, let's give them a standing ovation. Stand to your feet, come on. Make some noise. Indeed. Thank you very much, Alvin, for joining us this afternoon. And we're going to continue with the program. And please stick around and let's get these young minds going.
Absolutely.